Hey, I'm Greg from Co-Foundry, and we help businesses scale their companies using web applications that we built specifically for them based on their workflows and processes. Many a time we get asked some common questions about what a web application is and can it really actually solve some real-world business problems. So today we're going to cover some of the common questions we often get asked, and hopefully this helps you to understand the subject a bit better. So let's dive in. Firstly, what is a web application? Now, can sound like a fancy term, but really at the end of the day, a web application is just something that is running in your browser. Often when you're going to a website, you might experience an e-commerce site or something that's got a lot of functionality to it, and that's effectively what starts to make it more like a web application. But typically a web application is developed around something, some sort of process, some sort of need to capture and manage information and move it through various different people. So you could think of like a project management software or accounting software. This is typically what might be built with a web application. But simply put, a web application is something that runs in your browser. So you would access it by navigating to a website just like any other website, but effectively what you're experiencing is an application that's running inside of your browser. How is a web application different from a website? In simplicity, it's effectively the same code, the same sort of process to developing a website is what you use to developing an application. The key difference between them is that web application has just got a lot of additional functionality in it. A good example of this is an e-commerce store or an e-commerce website. To that degree, it actually is a web application. You log in, you register and log in, you put a couple of things in your cart, and then you purchase it. That is a very simplified version of what a web application is. And whereas a website is normally a lot more static, a lot more simple, and all that's there is to communicate some information and maybe capture your contact details or something like that. But when you get into more advanced scenarios where a business, they will have a web application that's solving a workflow, for example, or helping them to manage customer inquiries or customer orders. A web application will just be something there that's just got all that functionality in it. Another question is a mobile app the same as a web app? In reality, they're very similar. A mobile app is something that you're going to install on your phone, and then it's an application that doesn't necessarily need internet access to work. A web application is something that does need internet access to work, because all it's doing is taking that experience, that user experience that you're pressing buttons, etc., and it's communicating that to a server and then getting back an answer or a result or whatever the case is. Next question we get asked is, why would a business need a custom web application? Is ultimately because there's something unique about that company's way that they do things, that they're looking to build something around that process. This is often the case where the founder of the business has really worked out how things should be done, and it's been a very, very, very successful action for them, and they want to make sure they build that into an application that's going to drive that process and drive how that works, etc. Beyond that, it starts to hit into the worlds of integrating various different things. A very good example of this is something that might capture claims. Take an insurance company or something like that, right? You got your end consumer, he's going to log in, he's going to submit his claim with all of his invoices, then that's going to be received by someone internal, like an internal staff member that manages submission of claims. They're going to review the claim, they might look into the details of the invoice, capture some extra data about it, and basically move it on to the next person. In the old days, we're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of common software out there. Like today, there's lots and lots of accounting software. So typically today when you're getting a custom web application, it's because your needs don't fit the features or functionality that come with that web application that you're looking at, like an accounting software. The more your business is not in line necessarily with a standard common way of doing things, which accounting is very standard and common, then the more your business is going to require something custom to run that particular process. Insurance is a good one. There are obviously customized versions of insurance like pet insurance and things like that that are very specific and have a very specific process that needs to be run. What are some everyday examples of web application? Cool. Accounting software? Definitely. You've got project management software. You've got what we call a CRM or customer relationship management system. These are applications that are helping you to manage sort of sales, customer records, lead management software, or even something as simple that you probably would have experienced yourself by chance is Facebook. It is a web application. You go to facebook.com and you navigate through it and you can perform certain functionalities. You can like, you can share, you can comment. To that degree, it's a web application. An ads platform where you're capturing ads and deciding what ad you want to advertise online. To that degree, it's a web application. So these are just common examples of web application, and you probably have experienced pretty much most of them already. Next question is, what technologies are used to build a web application? Well, every day these technologies change, and there's new technologies being created all the time. But the simplicity of it is, you will probably hear some terminology that is spoken about. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some common phrases. HTML is basically hypertext markup language. In essence, it is effectively the code that tells the browser what it should render, right? So you and I can say picture, but at the end of the day, if we communicate that through HTML and we say picture, then the browser knows, oh, when he said picture, I've got to render something that looks like a picture, right? So it's effectively a way of communicating in code to the browser to say, put this on the screen in this particular location. Some other technologies, CSS, cascading style sheet. So effectively, this is what makes the page web application look the way it does. Like the style of the buttons, the colors, the size and types of the fonts, all these various different characteristics about the aesthetics of the page are controlled through this thing called CSS. And another area is JavaScript. JavaScript is basically code that runs in your browser and will control and manage some of that interaction. So what you might have experienced if you ever used a product like Trello or something that's more advanced like a web application, and you move something on the screen, like you use your mouse and you click and you drag something and you drop it somewhere. Controlling functionality like that within a web page would be something like JavaScript. Next question is, how secure are web applications? Well, there's a specific technology called SSL. Now that basically refers to security, all right, or a security layer. So effectively it means that between your browser and the server that's providing that website content, there's a secure connection, and whatever's being transmitted through there cannot be interpreted by someone else. So basically, from the moment it leaves that server and arrives in your browser, it is what we call encrypted. So it can't be interpreted or read by something else. Typically, web applications must be secure. And you often see this when you see the characters HTTPS put in front of website URLs, etc. And most of the time these days, pretty much most websites, if not all, and definitely all applications are typically behind this thing, the security layer of this HTTP. A very good example of this is your banking application. Will involve some sort of security layer between your browser and the server so that the connection is secure and you're all safe to do your interactions with your bank account. Do I need a web application if I already have a website? This is down to purpose and function. What is the purpose and function of a website, and what is the purpose and function of a web application? Now, a website is literally just designed to communicate and market your products and services, and might do some basic interaction with a customer or a visitor. Whereas a web application has a very specific purpose where there's some functionality that has to be driven or a process that needs to be followed, and that will involve a web application. I wouldn't say if you've got a website, it means you don't need to have a web application. It really comes down to, what is the purpose? What problem are you trying to solve? And what sort of mechanism or software are you going to need to do that, whether it be a website or a web application? Okay, so I hope in this session that you got to understand a bit more about the basics when it comes to web applications and what's involved. Obviously, you're more than welcome to put a question in the comments, and you're looking to build a custom web application for your business and you want to talk to somebody about the process, reach out to us and we'll definitely assist you. All right, see you in the next video.